Kacey can help walk us through Hofstra and Furman, and that's going to be the game that specifically we have the highlights for. KCD drops in. We will wholly admit that we will be discussing Hofstra and Furman. We do have the end of the PK shootout, so we got that on tape to be driven crazy by the call of our Matty Cruz and Fax and Childress. So that is the rundown of anything and everything going on this planet. And so the biggest question that we have is, where's Owen? We have to figure out where Owen is this morning. All right, we'll bring in KCD and find out. KCD, where you be?
Oh, I'm at home. I've been home for a month. I'm hanging out.
And you've already got the poinsettias up. You've got
a little Christmas tree up, which is good. Little decorations.
So you got the little Christmas tree. Do you have a larger Christmas tree outside of the camera range?
I do. I have one coming. I have a new one that I got. So I'm waiting for that to arrive.
Okay. And all right. All right. Now I have to ask this. Yeah, you've already got your mug out. You're ready to go. So you're married.
Christmas mug.
Hey, look, nothing wrong with that. All right. So when it comes to decorating the Casa de KCD,
yes.
Are you an individual that works 2 or 3 holidays ahead, or do you wait for the calendar to turn before you go to the next one? Because there were folks that were like in July setting up stuff for Christmas.
No, to each their own, but I am definitely a by the calendar person. Like, I don't even listen to Christmas music till after Thanksgiving. Like, when it's on the radio, I turn it off.
Okay.
So I go through each holiday. I do like fall, Thanksgiving, then Christmas. So I'm definitely by the calendar.
Okay, because the boss here is also by the calendar, where you do Halloween. Nothing happening with November until you get to November. Halloween goes away. Then you start plotting for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is over once you've returned from family and in-laws. Then you try and find a day and a half to sit there and tear everything down from Thanksgiving. You start putting up your Christmas stuff. And that's how we are here. I mean, obviously the office doesn't change except for maybe some bunting that will surprise me at some point. I don't know. But I wanted to find out if you were, in fact, a by the calendar person, or if you were one of those that sets up the grid and it's like, yep, okay, August 1st, let's get ready for Christmas. No, you're by the book. Okay.
I am.
Just checking. Okay. Let's see. So where do you want to start? We can start with MLS Cup. We're down to 2. We got to go through the brackets when it comes to men's and women's in the NCAA, and we do have the final 2 minutes of the PK shootout with Hofstra and Furman as well. Where do you want to go?
We can start with MLS. That's fine, and then go to college for the majority of the time.
All right. So MLS Cup, and it is Vancouver and Messi and friends. Vancouver took care of business. BID''NESS, as they say here in the South, and took care of business. Put San Diego away. Great season for Mikey Veras. They made it to the last game of the Western Conference. You see now she's hydrating and she's drinking out of the Chick-fil-A mug. So she's got
I'm doing both.
She's got the hot and the cold. She's like the McDLT of preparation for the voice this morning. I see how this works. So Western Conference, Vancouver put up 3 early and it was over. And when you look at Messi and friends, it ain't just Messi. He didn't take a shot on target. We'll start with the Western Conference and go Vancouver and San Diego. When you look at that one and you look at what Vancouver has been able to do with adding Thomas Mueller, what has it been like to see Vancouver this year?
I think there's 2 things that I wanted to kind of address with Vancouver. The first one is the fact that they learned from the LAFC game. They gave up that 2-goal lead with LAFC, and easier said than done to keep a 2-goal lead on Son. Like, we know that and what he can do and what he did in that game, but incredibly impressive to continue to produce goals at the rate that they are. We talk about Inter Miami and their goal production, but honestly, the goal production from Vancouver is equally impressive. Now they were able to secure a lead, be able to see it out, which I thought was pretty impressive. And I just think that Vancouver has a little bit of an edge to them. Sebastian Berhalter is an emotional leader in midfield. You can talk about his game all day long, but you need players that have that extra grit, that extra energy and passion that you see. And I think he's a big part of that, alongside obviously the rest of the players that they have.
Yeah, no doubt. And to see a Berhalter in the PK shootout in Vancouver, as we'll go back even around, where You survive 11v9 basically.
Mhm.
When you're in the semifinal against LA. So you end up with Tristan Blackman getting the second yellow, which means he wasn't available last time out. So you're at 11v10. Then you end up with an injury, and Bilal Halbouni is now going to be out 5 to 7 weeks with a bone contusion. So you miss him late in overtime. You're at 11v9, second extra period. You're at 11v9. You survive that chaos and get a PKs. And we mentioned Sebastian Berhalter in front of that 54,000 at BC Place. And you see that he's turned into an absolute dog, I think, when it comes to what we're seeing when it comes to Sebastian Berhalter and his growth curve.
He has, and everyone deals with adversity a little bit different. Everyone deals with big moments a little different. And just because you don't have that big energy or show doesn't mean you don't have the passion. But every team needs someone that you can look at and go, yeah, you're right. We're about to do this. And when you look at him, I just think of inspiration because he is that energy. And everyone displays it a bit differently. So I think that's a critical piece for them. And like you mentioned, missing Blackman, I thought was going to be a big deal for them. I still think it's great that they have him back, but they were able to figure that out, and it shows the depth of their squad.
No doubt about it. And Jesper Sorensen, next week, I'm going to have Thursday. I'm going to have all of our MLS compatriots, as many of them that can crash. We're going to have the Hours of Chaos with our friends from Apple TV talking MLS Cup. I'm going to have them open up their MLS High Yearbook for 2025. I'm going to wait for next week for you to open up your MLS High Yearbook to talk about miscongeniality, most likely to succeed, the ones that get caught out back smoking, the ones that need detention, that kind of a thing.
That'll be list. I'm going to put some thought into this.
Yeah, so all of those awards that were given in the high school yearbook, that's going to be next week, and you can make up your own. I don't care. I mean, it's just like literally whatever award you want to get. You know, who was the one that went into the library and had the librarian sign the yearbook? Thank you for bringing your books back on time. You're a great student at insert high school here. You know, the librarian signs it. That's what I'm looking for next week from you, but we'll save it until after MLS Cup where you're concerned. Eastern Conference. Lionel Messi does not take a shot on goal, but he has like 19,000 assists in the postseason, and it's just how crazy good it is. But 2 points. I think that anybody that has badmouthed Javier Mascherano needs to write an apology note and mail it to Fort Lauderdale because of how he has navigated this season and navigated everything going on this roster.
100%. I completely agree with that, with what Mascherano's done. He's adapted throughout the year. They've become more balanced defensively. They've made changes to the lineups. He's had player management decisions he's had to make, and he's done what he can do. He's gotten his team to the MLS Cup final with the help of the players, of course, but it is not easy to manage stars. And I think that can be underrated sometimes of how do you do that? That's why everyone talks about national team coaches being a little bit different than pro coaches at times, because you have this massive collection of stars on one team in a national team environment. Well, Miami is that way. Inter Miami has all those stars, and Mascherano coming from the national team environment, yes, it was under 20s. Yes, it was a younger age, not the senior team. But I think he's developed a skill set not only from that, but also from leading teams as a player, that he's shown that player management side. And it's incredibly scary, shifting gears a little bit, for Inter Miami to see that Messi doesn't get a shot and they still win and win big. If I'm Vancouver, I'm not wanting to see that. And yes, you can throw everything out the window in a final sometimes because it's one day. But being more balanced defensively, more goal scorers, and then they still have Lionel Messi. That's a tough combination.
And you sat one of your friends, literally Mascherano and Luis Suarez, your buds, and it's like, I think we're better if you sit. I mean, that's one of those decisions where, we're looking at it a couple of different ways. We looked at it as you did what you had to do, because this way you got younger and faster. And I think if you go back to game 3 of the Nashville series, I think that's when everything kind of flipped, where Suarez sits, you've got Silvetti and Allende up there in the attack. Messi drops back a little bit, and you get younger, faster, you're pressing, and you press Nashville out of the building. Then you go into the next round. You press that team out of the building. And so you're creating issues for everybody. Now they're having to think about, okay, well, what happens with these guys here in the lineup? What happens now with Messi? Now that there are more things in your brain that you've got to account for now with just one switch, and it's putting one of your veterans on the bench.
Well, doing that is incredibly hard because, like you mentioned, it will be highlighted if it goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to make those decisions. And then you have to have the buy-in. It doesn't mean Luis Suarez has to like it, and we know the competitor he is. I'm sure he doesn't. But you don't want anyone like that to cause a scene and distract from the team. So far, so good. With dropping Messi deeper, it's like any false nine. You tempt that center back to step out of their back line. But now it's Lionel Messi. So you have to step out at times. Well, you don't, but it feels like you do, because if you don't and you don't communicate that to the holding mid, then Messi's running at your back line with capable forwards, young forwards running at you. And so what we've seen is that combination has worked because there's so much respect around Lionel Messi that everyone's drawn to him. And now you've got this pace in behind. Don't count Luis Suarez out, though. I think he's the type of player that if he does come into the MLS Cup final, he's going to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder as well. So credit to him if he can come in and be able to contribute if it's a tight game, and to Mascherano for almost cultivating that grind and that, okay, I've got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder and I'm also Luis Suarez who can score goals. Could be a difference in the MLS Cup final.
Yeah, and you've also got the last match for Jordi Alba and Sergi Busquets. To your point about drawing the center back forward, goal number 3 for Allende when he got the hat trick last time out. We played it yesterday, but I want to play it just to remind everybody about what the point you brought up. And this is blind because you didn't know we had this stuff. Your point that you bring up happened in goal number 3. So here's how it was broken down. Jake and Taylor on Apple TV Plus and the Eastern Conference Final.
Right foot, wasn't it
I'm not responsible.
Absolutely, I wouldn't touch that. Oh,
Allende, is it 5? A hat trick for Allende! This team, what a night for Inter Miami. In the playoffs, that ties the MLS record.
I ruffled some feathers this week because I said with Silvetti and Allende playing off Messi as a false nine, I'd argue Miami's unplayable. Any argument? You're so worried about Messi as a false nine and playing through him, Silvetti and Allende will run circles around you because there's quality all over the field that Mascherano knows right now is the magic formula.
Now, I do have an issue. I will challenge him with Vancouver's back line, but you could tell the moment in the highlight when you hear Taylor and Jake go, uh-oh, that was the through ball that you're talking about, where the center back comes forward and tries to bait Messi into a decision, which traditionally doesn't go very well. And that goes between the two. It goes between the two center backs, and literally it is Allende off and running for goal number 5. What you said was fruition in goal number 5 for Inter Miami.
And the temptation to step out is real because Messi facing forward is even more scary at times with no pressure. So he has Rodrigo de Paul and Busquets underneath him. So that gives the green light to Allende, to Silvetti, to when Messi gets the ball, take off. And when you pull a center back out like that and then you disjoint your line, all it takes is for Messi to find the 1v1 matchup, because there's a 1v2 matchup with one of them, because you still have 3 backs in the back line, but there's a 1v1 matchup, and a player running forward with pace is usually going to beat the defender if the timing is right on the pass. And so it's incredibly efficient attacking right now from Inter Miami.
And that back line, so where the point was made by Taylor about, any argument, yeah, I'll argue with you because of the back line and the discipline that we've seen in the 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it, from Vancouver. That back line that we've seen, you get Blackman back as a part of this discussion. It's Johnson, Priso, Laborda, and Ocampo. Ocampo playing out of position for the 2 games because of the Blackman absence. Now you have that, and then in front of them it's Kubas and Berhalter. I'll take those 6 going up against the high power of Inter Miami because of the discipline that we've seen from them all season long to get to this point.
It's also about the approach that Vancouver takes. If they're sitting 2 like they normally do in front of the back 4, that does really eliminate some space in there. Now, we know Messi will operate a little bit wide if he needs to get on the ball. He'll do a lot of things to pull players out of position. But when you get to a final, what's the approach? Is it that they're going to try to minimize, or are they going to try to go forward? So are they going to be a little bit less or more conservative, against a team like Miami? But you're in a final. So I'll just be interested to see if they really worry about that space the entirety of the game and try to limit it in transition and keep players back and let the attack do their thing, or if it is more fluid, because Vancouver has proven they can score a lot of goals. So that's one thing I'll be interested to see is the first 20, 25 minutes of this game and how Vancouver approaches it.
And you mentioned Vancouver, the attack of the return of Brian White. So the early reports of the demise of Brian White have been shortly exaggerated. Ali Ahmed, Thomas Mueller, Sabi, Brian White, and once again, Berhalter coming into the part of the attack. I think, and this is something that we've seen in the Eastern Conference all season long, and it is the back line of Inter Miami. They have been prone to fouling. They have been prone to cards. They have been prone to getting run around. And I think that possibly with the speed and the passing that you see with Vancouver, that's the part of this that I'm intrigued, because you know that Jordi Alba, he's going to go forward. So that means you take the dial on the old radio receiver, and you sit there and you turn it a knob. You turn the volume one position. Everybody rotates once. That means that Noah Allen rolls over, Falcone rolls over, Busquets comes back, and then, whatever it looks like at right back is it Cello Weigand, who at times is a walking yellow card. Falcone, Maxi Falcone has a great head of lettuce, but sometimes he's very, very desperate and ends up with a card here and there. So I think Miami's backline can be had, especially if Alba gets caught going forward and that space is there down the attacking right-hand side that he gets, and that open space. You have to take advantage of the open space when the aggressiveness for Inter Miami takes hold.
100%. And that's something from a scouting perspective that they'll know through and through. These are transition moments that we can potentially take advantage of, and we need to frustrate the back line of Inter Miami. And that's why I don't necessarily think that they're going to be, I don't want to say overly worried about Messi. Of course they are, right? But I do think that Vancouver would do themselves a disservice if they didn't try to frustrate Inter Miami's back line and the defensive unit. So if they sit back with too much respect in the game, I think it's to their detriment.
What kind of game are you expecting? I think it's going to go longer than 90 minutes.
I knew you were going to ask that. I'm very interested in watching this because it's been so many goals that I feel like it's either going to be more of the same or it's going to be 0-0 and they just can't figure it out and they go to extra time. I doubt that. I think there's going to be goals in this game. But you just wonder if it's going to dry up at some point or if it's just they're going to mute each other in that regards. But I do think in Miami it's going to be an exciting game, a lot of action. But yeah, I could see extra time. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I don't know on this one who I think is going to win. I really don't. After watching Vancouver, I covered mostly the East Coast. Yeah. After watching a lot of Vancouver this playoffs, they have what it takes to score goals, and you need that against Miami because normally they're going to get a goal or two.
Yeah, and so we will keep an eye on it. Last night on Soccer Over There, we did picks of the week, and I said it was going to go longer than 90 minutes. That I was sure of. How many goals we were going to get, I don't know, because you know how cagey Vancouver can be, especially on the road, going up against a hot crowd in Fort Lauderdale at the Erector Set. I cannot wait until Saturday afternoon to see how this plays out with a team that knows what they want to do in Vancouver. They've done it all season long. They can frustrate the ever-loving ish out of you. And I think that when you can do that, you push some buttons for some folks for Inter Miami, then I think that it might, for Messi and friends, be an interesting afternoon. I don't know how long an afternoon, but I think it'll be an interesting afternoon.
Agreed.
Okay, let's get into college and NCAA. And so this will be where you get to take a 2-minute break because we're going to play the tail end of the PKs in Hofstra and Furman, which was by far one of the wackiest games of the past weekend. We'll break it all down when it comes to bracketology and everything coming up in a second. So what we're going to do as a public service, courtesy of our friends at the NCAA, here's the tail end of the PKs. We'll go into what happened leading into the PKs on the flip side of this. You'll hear a familiar voice. The first voice you're going to hear is our Maddie Cruz, who is paired with Faxon Childress. Late PKs, courtesy of our friends at the NCAA.
You mentioned the Pogba effect right there immediately. Just trying to throw the keeper off guard, not knowing where he's going to go, making him second guess, and then he just slots it home.
Absolutely clinical from Wilfer. And it's 4-3 Paladins and a must-make shot. Who else would you want up in this moment, though, if you're Hofstra, other than Laurie Goddard, the only reason you've even made it to this stage? Goddard with a heroic brace in a 1 minute and 8 second sequence in regulation, and now tries to keep Hofstra's season alive one more time from the spot. The CAA Player of the Year in the biggest moment of his season is money. Pure from Goddard once again. And it's 4-4. But he knows there's not much to celebrate, as a save or a miss is needed to extend the season for Hofstra. It all comes down to one kick at Stone Stadium in Greenville. Take another look.
Brilliant from the CAA Player of the Year. Just a confident PK. He goes up to him. You can hear it. You can hear him say, "Save it," especially to Bowen as he's about to step up on the line.
Everything is on the line in this moment. And it's the senior midfielder from Lewis Center, Ohio, Landon Hill, who's provided so many moments off the bench for this squad this season. Can Hill send them to the Elite Eight? He can! He can! He's pure from the spot, and Doug Allison's unbelievable season continues. The Furman Paladins.
There you go. That's the rundown of after the sixth goal in that one, courtesy of our friends at the NCAA. So for those that might have missed it, here's what went down. And I actually had to go back and look at this. So you have goal in the 17th minute by Hofstra, 1-0. 1-1 at the break. You score 36 seconds before intermission, so it's 1-1. Then you have 4 goals in a 5-minute period. 4 goals in a 5-minute period. 76-03, 79-52, 80-11, 81-19. So that 76-03, that's an outlier. That made it 2-1 Furman. So then you have 3 goals in what? That's a minute and 27 seconds? 3 goals in like 90 seconds to get us to 3-3 in a natural brace by Laurie Goddard within a minute 8 of itself. So that game was insane. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong. I was just relaxing, like at my home, like hanging out. I'm like, you know what? I think there's some games on today. I should put a game on. And I go to the ESPN app and I see 3-3. And I'm like, how did I miss all of this action? And then I go over to the game, watch the rest of it. Obviously, the penalties were very exciting, especially for the neutral fan and Furman. Yep. But I noticed how those goals were scored because they kept recapping it. And I was so sad that I missed this. But I have to say this. I'm listening to the game. I'm watching overtime, second overtime. And I'm like, this woman is really good. I was listening to the broadcast and I'm thinking, this analyst is doing a great job. And then I hear the play-by-play go, Madison. And I'm like, I know who that is. And so I let the game finish. I sent her a message on Instagram. And I'm like, was that you? Because it never said her last name. And I didn't hear at the end. And she said yes. And I was like, you were excellent. It was just so fun to listen to her call that game. And she said it was a great time. But I have to give her a shout out. I know, obviously, she's super connected here. And I just thought she called it a really good game. And it's not easy to do in those moments, especially going into penalties. That's an interesting type of call. And she did a great job.
Yeah, so background, Maddie was our first ever intern. And she has turned it from being an intern with us to being with us and doing all of those other things, being one of those wandering minstrels, you know, that does NAIA and NCAA. And she kind of got locked into the Furman Regional after the SoCon Championship. So, yeah, she has done some tremendous work. But, yeah, she was crushing it up there and got to see absolute chaos. Yeah, I think it took her like a day and a half to come down from that.
I don't doubt it. I know that feeling. I know that feeling for sure.
3-3 in PKs, and the home side wins. It's a great story because you have a coach who's hanging it up after this season. His story continues, and now they're going to play Portland, and that is going to be – I need a calendar. Friday. Friday at 10 Eastern in Portland, the 16 and the 8. And then you've got Akron, who has survived. Akron beat Duke, and I know the Carolina in you is sitting there going, ha, 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 ha. And yeah.
Inside.
That's like I was waiting for something. So Duke loses to Akron, the 14. Duke had made it through unseeded, knocking off Fairleigh Dickinson, knocking off number 3 Princeton, then losing to Akron. Akron takes on unseeded and unranked St. Louis, who beat Bryant in PKs. And that's how that's going to be in the upper half of the bracket. Then on the lower half of the bracket, Washington knocks off number 12 Stanford. So it's Washington at Maryland. And I guess they had to leave like later today to get there by Saturday at 1:00. I think this is an ACC matchup now. Washington and Maryland. I had to think about it for a second. So Saturday at 1:00, Washington and Maryland. Then Georgetown and NC State, the 7 and the 15. And that's your final 2, 4, 6. That's your final 8 in the NCAA on the men's side. How nuts is it to have a bunch of 10 and belows as the survivors as most of this 8?
You said exactly what I was about to say. The highest seed is a 4. With unranked teams, with a 16th seed, with a 15th seed. I don't know because I haven't followed it year after year after year for the last 20 years since I've been out of college, but I don't remember this many unranked teams or lower seeded teams being this far. There's always someone. There's always 1 or 2. But to not have a seed above 4 is pretty incredible. And it's fun for us to be able to watch that. And you just never know what's going to happen. And that makes it exciting this time of year.
Yep. On the women's side, Florida State as your 3 continues to work their way through. They knocked off Ohio State 4-1. Stanford as the 1 beat Michigan State as a 2, 5-1. Stanford putting 5 goals on the board this late in a tournament. That to me is always something you got to kind of sit there and raise the eyebrow at a little bit. Then it's TCU over Vandy in overtime. A 2 beats a 1. Then Duke is a 2 beat Washington 3-0. So you're looking at Florida State and TCU in one semifinal, and then the other semifinal, Stanford and Duke. So you got your Blue Bloods on one side and the Young'uns on the other side. A 3, 2 2s, and a 1 in your Final 4 on the women's side.
And this is why I say Stanford has the ability to win this entire thing is the goal scoring that you mentioned. We talked about it with Inter Miami from an MLS Cup perspective, just the ability to score goals. Stanford at the collegiate level has so many goal scorers, and it's incredibly unpredictable. And it's not like they just run through people in a 1v1. They're scoring from corner kicks. They're scoring from set pieces. They're scoring from headers. They're scoring from run of play, shots from distance, combination play. Like anything you can think about, they can figure out and produce on a soccer field. And if anyone is going to stop them, though, I do believe it's Duke. I think that semifinal matchup on Friday is going to be one to watch. Duke absolutely played Washington off the field. I just watched the game last night, and Washington barely had the ball. And Duke did the same thing in the ACC semifinal as well with Notre Dame, but they gave up a goal on a counterattack, and then they took them really late, just weren't able to see it out. But they dominate in possession. So which is going to give with Stanford Duke, I have no idea, but I think that matchup is going to be the one to watch.
So Stanford, just for edification purposes, beat Cal Poly 3-1. Beat Alabama on a game that you might see on a muddy, grassy field on a college football Saturday. 7-3. That to me, it's like, excuse me, what? 6-0 over BYU. 5-1 over Michigan State. They're slipping. They're scoring less and less goals each time. So if you have a team like Stanford, all right, let me put your coaching cap on for a second.
Do it.
Coaching cap is on. You've got a team in Stanford that has scored 21 goals in 4 games in a postseason tournament.
Mm.
If you're staring at these numbers, I guess, first and foremost, don't stare at those numbers. How do you defend and create opportunity for yourself? I'm not going to say as the team. I'll say it as a team playing against Stanford, because I can't mention that 4-letter word to you specifically.
I gave them their due. I said if anyone can beat them, I gave them their due.
Okay, so if you are a team squaring off against Stanford that is as lethal as they are offensively, how do you defend well and create opportunities for yourself? Obviously, having to be clinical at the other end because you may not be getting a whole lot of chances. How do you defend against something like that?
I think depending on their opponent, which of the 3 they play, whether they get to the final or not, it's going to depend that answer. Duke If I'm Kieran Hall, I am staying with my game plan. I think Duke is good enough to keep the ball and to make Stanford defend. I don't think they need to sit in, but it is going to be about moments of the game. If Stanford enjoys some possession for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, then they have to find a defensive block that makes a lot of sense. Duke loves to press and loves to be higher up the field, but there are going to be times that Stanford's possession is going to push them into their defensive third, and they are going to have to keep their distances really tight, and their marking in the box is going to have to be great with positioning, all those little details and those fine margins that separate teams at the highest level. But if I'm Duke, I am completely trying to outpossess Stanford. I'm trying to create my overloads just like I've done all year. If I'm Florida State or even TCU, I do think Florida State can press even higher than a lot of teams because of their athletic ability that they have up top and turn teams over. And TCU hasn't seen Stanford this year. And so I think if they end up playing them in the final, if Stanford does advance past Duke, they're going to have a mix of both. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sit in a little bit more against a team like Stanford.
All right. I know that your weekend gets kind of busy, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does. I am going to be the filler show between the two semifinal games. Mike Watts and I will be at the desk on the field in Kansas City, and we'll be discussing the first game and what happened with Florida State TCU. And then we'll be interviewing the winning coach, previewing the next game, doing that show for ESPNU on Friday night.
All right. So who's upstairs? Is Jen upstairs?
Jen and Lori are calling the games. And then Marion Crowder will be on the sideline. She'll be the reporter. And then Mike and I will do the show in between. So we've got a great crew. I'm really excited.
Well, yeah, Marion is one of our she's been an OG with us before. So Marion's been with us. Jen, as you know, Jen and I have known each other for a real long time. So I guess this means next week we got to figure out when we can drag Jen in to have the two of you on to break everything down that happened this upcoming weekend, yeah?
Exactly. I go straight from there to the World Sevens event in Fort Lauderdale to commentate that with Jessica Charman.
Nice.
Saturday, Sunday, and then I'll be in New York next Tuesday. So I will be calling in from a hotel, but we will try to coordinate that. But yes, it'll be a really action-packed weekend. I'd love to be on with Jen at some point. It'd be nice to recap everything for sure.
Yeah, so the Wonder Twins are doing the sevens, huh?
We are. Well, a lot of people are there, but we are paired up together for the World Sevens.
All right, so break that down. Well, for those that might have it's like, I heard about this. What is this World Sevens that's going on?
So it's a 77 tournament with women's professional teams coming in. And so there's 8 teams coming in. You play in a 77 environment, 30-minute games, half a soccer field. So it's smaller, but still a good space. There has to be a winner. So overtime goes to 5v5, and there's a 5-minute overtime and then penalty kicks. So it's a different type of format, nice and fun, exciting, and should be a really good time.
And not 5 degrees like it might be in Kansas.
I'm going from Kansas City, that could be like snowing and 25, 30 degrees being on the field, to Fort Lauderdale, which is going to be like 80 degrees, and then to New York. New York is just the trip that I planned, but I'm going cold, warm, cold. So it should be interesting.
All right. So make sure that you stop at the store on the way out of town or when you get into Kansas City to get those, the Hot Pockets, the hand warmers, the big ones that can fit under your arch inside your shoes.
Oh, I'm definitely doing that.
And maybe electric socks or something like that. And then you have to sit. I think you're going to have to pack one suitcase for Kansas City and then one suitcase for and New York, and then the other suitcase for South Florida, and how this is all going to work out.
I'll report in because I have a charge to myself to try to only take my carry-on suitcase. I don't think it's going to happen with the shoe choices.
No.
But I'm going to do everything I can. So I will report in if that happened next week. I don't know if it will.
All I'm saying is that we're going to look on your Insta, and it's going to be like massive 50-pound suitcase, and then the carry-on that's going to have like everything else that's attached to it.
I know.
Safe travels. Obviously, when you run into Jen, remind her that next Tuesday it's mandatory that she come on with you at a prearranged time. So literally, knock on her. It's like knock on the side of her head. Yo, we're doing the show on Tuesday. So whatever works.
I can do that. I see her on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, so I'll make sure she is in the know.
Yes, she is in the know, and we'll catch up with you and Jen just to have great calls. Be safe, stay warm, and then don't stay warm, and then we'll see you from New York next week.
Sounds good. Have a good week.